Hey everyone, it's Wednesday, May 14th. I'm Vineet Brach here in the Vancouver newsroom, and here's what we're following right now. We're going to start with sports. So the Vancouver Canucks have named Adam Foote as the team's new head coach. Foote was hired as the Canucks assistant coach in 2023. He was previously with the Colorado Avalanche as a development consultant and defensive coach. He spent also 19 years in the NHL as a player, winning a Stanley Cup with the Avalanche twice and won Olympic gold with Team Canada in 2002. In his NHL career, he racked up 308 points and more than 1,500 penalty minutes. The May-long weekend is just around the corner, and many people in the province will be getting away on BC Ferries. The company says that it's expecting a high demand again. That is also after a busy past summer season. This also comes after a chaotic Easter long weekend that saw one BC Ferries vessel suffer a mechanical failure as it sailed between Horseshoe Bay and Langdale.
We are working with aging vessels and terminal infrastructure, and this means that we have to plan for worst-case scenarios to protect service. And whilst we can't eliminate all risks, we are working hard behind the scenes to keep people and goods moving.
BC Ferries says it has taken a number of steps to make the system as efficient and reliable as possible. That includes a refit on 21 vessels. It's also adding 1,000 extra round trips across major routes to deal with that increased demand that they're seeing. And the mayors of Gibsons and Bowen Island have penned a letter to the province calling for action and accountability to ensure that there's smooth sailing on critical BC Ferry routes. A marine biologist is raising concerns after two gray whales washed up dead in BC in less than a week. The first whale washed up in Tofino earlier this month. The second was reported in Haida Gwaii 5 days later.
My friends and colleagues in Mexico have been kind of sounding the alarm that there's something going on with the gray whales this year. Going back to February of this year, Mexican scientists were noting record lows, like 90% reduction in calf production as of February. Very, very concerning. And even more concerning were essentially beaches in Mexico on both sides, on the Baja side and on the Pacific side, effectively being littered with dead gray whales.
Hall says the causes of death will be confirmed, but gray whales, they also face several threats, including the risk of being hit by a ship, entanglement, and exposure to contaminants. And a federal court judge has tossed out a challenge that would have stopped the killing of about 400 ostriches on their farm due to an outbreak of avian flu. Lawyers for Universal Ostrich Farms, they argued that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's cull order was unreasonable. Farm owners claim that many birds had recovered and didn't pose a wider risk, but the court ruled that the agency's decisions were both reasonable and fair, and that the cull of the herd would go ahead. The judge said he has considerable empathy, but the CFIA has followed proper procedure to stop the spread of the deadly bird virus. And a ban on Category 2 and 3 burns will begin Friday at noon for the Fort Nelson, Dawson Creek, and Fort St. John zones. The open fire restrictions, they also include burn barrels, fireworks, and exploding targets. The Wildfire Service says the region really continues to experience very dry conditions. And that's what we have for you so far. You're watching CBC News BC. Stay with us. BC Today is coming up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. BC Ferries is gearing up for another busy summer, but with frequent breakdowns, cancellations, and long waits, the mayor of Gibsons says things at BC Ferries are rudderless. We'll talk to him, and we're taking your calls to: do you rely on the ferries or plan to travel on a ferry this summer? Is the service meeting your needs? Plus, seeking savings and cutting costs. Have you gotten creative? We'll talk about thrift shopping, repair cafes, and ask you how you're making shopping for clothes and other household items easy on the wallet. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. We are right around the corner from the unofficial start of the summer. That's right, the Victoria Day long weekend usually previews what summer travel could look like. And BC Ferries is preparing for yet another busy season across its network. Now, it held a media conference this morning ahead of the long weekend to discuss how BC Ferries is getting ready. Now, during the Easter long weekend back in April, the Queen of Coquitlam, which services Langdale to Horseshoe Bay on that route, had a mechanical failure, and that created major delays for residents and travelers. But BC Ferries VP of Engineering, Stephen Jones, said this morning that they are ready for the long weekend and a busy summer ahead. They're adding 1,000 extra sailings across the high-demand routes.
It's no secret that our vessels and terminals are aging, and rising demand is only adding additional pressure. And since it's playoff season, here's an analogy. In peak season, all of our players are on the ice. Some are playing through injuries, and we don't have a bench to draw from. We have no substitutes. Last year, we had a strong summer, and we were fortunate that the Queen of New West lost its propeller in September and not sooner. But we can't count on luck. And so we're doing everything we can to repair, but we also want our customers to understand the reality that we're facing. Summer is when we experience our highest demand of the year, and we're prepared to have all our vessels in operation. Last year, we made 102,000 sailings during summer, with fleet reliability at 99.6%. That's about one missed trip in 250. This summer, we're expecting similar or greater demand, and especially given the volumes we've already seen in recent weeks, with more Canadians taking their vacations locally, it's going to be busy. We saw record-breaking passengers on the Easter weekend and carried 7,000 more passengers this Easter weekend than we did last year, and that's with one large vessel less in operation. So what have we done to prepare? In short, every vessel we have, all 37 of them, has been prepped for summer. Since September 2024, we've carried out at least 21 major projects, mostly refits and some unplanned repairs. We're spending an average of about $75 million a year on refits, much of that work done in local shipyards, and that figure is expected to grow as major vessels continue to age.
That's Stephen Jones, the VP for Engineering over at BC Ferries. We'd like to hear from you. Let us know now, do you rely on BC Ferries, and is it meeting your needs? Do you plan on traveling and using a BC ferry this summer? Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or you can email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Silas White is the mayor of Gibsons and joins me now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What are your biggest concerns as a ferry-reliant community?
Well, our biggest concerns overall are service for our local community. We have a number of seniors in our community, and we have a hospital here that's equipped to deal with a population of about 30,000 people, but it's overwhelmed, as our healthcare system is, as everyone's familiar with. And people often need to go over for specialist appointments and other appointments. We have many children on the Sunshine Coast who, being in a geographically isolated community by ferries, participate in leagues that are on the Lower Mainland. And I've heard many stories recently of these families needing to come home at 1:30 a.m. on weeknights, on school nights, because our ferries are so late. And of course, we have commuters too who work on the Lower Mainland or have clients on the Lower Mainland, and it's very healthy for the BC economy for these people to get back and forth. And of course, we're speaking of the economy, we're reliant on goods and services to get to us in a timely manner when it comes to groceries and other absolutely crucial items.
And I mean, those are ongoing needs. How much worse has service gotten?
It's been abysmal ever since the long weekend. As I think everyone has seen the footage now of the tugboat pushing in the Queen of Coquitlam into Horseshoe Bay. And that was really symbolic of unfortunately, what's happened even since. It's the ferries have been chronically late. I think maybe I'm hopeful the first ferry of the day is on time, but after that, every day, it doesn't matter if it's weekday or weekend, they just keep getting later and later. And I was on one today that was late, unsurprisingly, and fortunately, it made me a little late for something to do, but it didn't seriously disrupt my life because that people's lives are getting quite significantly disrupted by this unreliable service.
Now, yourself and the mayor of Bowen Island, you've written a letter to BC Ferries after that Easter weekend. What are you asking for, and what's the response been?
The letter we sent, to be clear, is to the premier, not to BC Ferries.
Okay.
Because we really feel that provincial intervention is needed. We've seen it before. We feel we have a lot in common with the provincial government in being elected officials. We represent the same communities, whether it's provincial or local, and those communities rely on ferry service as a public service. And really, when it comes down to the provincial government, accountability needs to be ensured. There are service contracts that do that, but there's really what's really lacking, I think, is accountability for working with the public and ensuring that we have some hope for the future when it comes to the kind of the major capital plans, and we need a reliable second boat, but also just daily troubleshooting. We need some public responsiveness to that. People who are reliant on the service are always coming up with valid points for improvements and ideas for improvement, and we find that they're not getting looked after.
Okay, and do you know, I mean, is part of the issue that that there is that lack of accountability, that you have the province ultimately responsible as having this contract, but that the ferry is run kind of as an independent company? Is that part of the issue?
It's absolutely the issue. There was a structure that was set up over 20 years ago when the corporation was privatized, but it still has really, when it comes down to it, the provincial government's the only shareholder, and there are a couple of other entities in there, which is the BC Ferries Commissioner, which is independent,
right, and
the BC Ferries Authority Board. And I think I'm hopeful there was a plan then that they would all work together in some way, and all the parts would fit together. But we're not seeing them fit together anymore. We're not seeing them fit together right now in terms of really being clear on articulating and ensuring the public interest.
And so what has been the response from the province since your letter?
I just had a phone conversation with my MLA while I was waiting for this meeting. The province has had all kinds of concerns recently. We recognize The letter has been discussed, and we are looking forward to a meeting with the Premier soon about it.
Okay. And, as you say, the province has a lot of other concerns. I'm assuming you're talking about the trade war. People want to travel within BC this summer. This is part of the, the focus in light of the Trump rhetoric around a 51st state. So is BC Ferries prepared for that increase yet again in traffic?
I'm really hopeful that they are. Last summer was great. So if they can do what they did last summer, which was hourly service with a second boat, I think we can be as open to tourism and also be able to fulfill our residents' needs as much as possible. What the challenge has really been that we've been taking forward to BC Ferries has been usually around a month or two before the summer and after the summer, we have absolute chaos like we've had since Easter weekend, and definitely when the summer schedule is released, we are looking for it to be extended into October, hopefully through Thanksgiving weekend, in order to ensure reliable service at that time too.
Okay. Mayor White, thanks for being with us. I'm just going to take a call while I have you. I know we have you for another minute and a half or so. Asking people as well, do you rely on BC Ferry service? Are you thinking of traveling to an island community or the Sunshine Coast over the summer? And what are your plans? How do you think BC Ferries can meet that demand? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Vadra is on the line from Salt Spring Island. Hello, Vadra.
Hi, how you doing?
Well, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm glad the mayor brought up the change to the public-private partnership. My dad was actually in the office of the Auditor General when that went through and had a lot to do with it. And I know that he's got a lot to say about it. It'd be great to interview him, especially about how it's panned out and how that's panned out. But that's not my question or my comment. I live on Salt Spring Island, and like a lot of the small islands, we rely on tourists to show up, or not so much. We expect the tourists to show up every summer, and there isn't the same importance given to increasing in service on the small islands. The doubling up between Vancouver and Victoria is great, but our service hardly changes. We basically get maybe 1 or 2 extra sailings, and the lines are super long, and if you aren't there, like basically before the previous sailing, sometimes you don't get on. That's really frustrating. To go out and back in a day becomes really kind of impossible, and it's very limiting to the people here and the people who want to come and visit. And these things have been promised for a long time. We were supposed to have a two ferry sort of system, and it's not just Salt Spring. My friend drives ferry on the Denman Island route, and they just got a new fancy cable ferry. But the new ferry was the same size as the old ferry. So capacity at all. And in fact, it's gone into all kinds of coastal.
Okay. And it didn't increase capacity then? No. Okay, Vadra, you're just cutting out now. Thank you very much for that. And it sounds like it's the difference between meeting the needs of tourists, but also meeting the needs of locals, Mayor White.
I completely agree with Vadra's comments. We're experiencing the same kind of impressions in our ferry-dependent community as Salt Spring Island is. In that, I'll give you an example. In this, the reason we're having this interview today is that an announcement came out this morning from BC Ferries, and the news release they put out focuses on language like recommending people travel on an alternate, less busy route between Vancouver Island and the mainland. So when it comes to the ferry-dependent communities like Salt Spring Island and Sunshine Coast, apparently we don't count. Like we're being neglected, and we're not even kind of considered as being the targets or the recipients of these communications when really our residents are the people who are most concerned about BC Ferries on a daily basis. And there are other points in this news release that trumpet new point of interest announcements on the inside passage routes for tourists. The Seascapes Lounge experience. These are the kinds of things that, we appreciate these are happening for tourists, but if they're not really balanced off for residents of the Sunshine Coast and other ferry-dependent communities like Salt Spring Island, it's frankly offensive. And that's how I felt when I read the news release this morning.
Mayor White, we'll catch up with you when you have that meeting with the Premier, okay? Keep us updated on that. Thanks so much for your time.
Will do. Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. That's Gibsons Mayor Silas White asking you, do you rely on the BC Ferry service? Are you planning to be a tourist this summer and use BC Ferry to get to an island community? Let us know. Does BC Ferries meet your needs? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And let's head to the Sunshine Coast again. Peter in Sechelt. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I am well. How are you? How's BC Ferries serving you?
Well, BC Ferries for 22 years now since I moved here has been kind of up and down. As a matter of fact, the year I moved here was the year they decided to privatize the ferries, more or less. Put it into a private management situation. Reservations were announced. And of course, some of us could see that what was going to happen, and it has happened. It's very hard for a local to get out of this place now without reservations. If you go to the ferry, it's likely you're going to end up waiting for several more hours. But anyways, what I wanted to get to was the idea that when I was a kid in Squamish, where I grew up, in 1950-something, they decided to start building a highway. In 1958, that road was connected, and we could drive to Vancouver.
Right.
Over the decades, it has been improved greatly. Squamish has everything that the Sunshine Coast doesn't have when it comes to building supplies, big box stores, etc. We are a nice little community. A lot of people here think that our highway is going to ruin things, but a road to Squamish from Gibsons would actually open up the coast in a different way. People could come and go when they want, every hour of the day even, and we wouldn't have to be lined up at the ferry depot and missing ferries. I missed a ferry one night when I was supposed to move to the interior, and it cost me an extra 2 hours. I ended up getting to the interior that night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyways, the highway would be great if we had that.
Really interesting point, Peter. Thank you so much. Good to hear from you. Michael in Parksville, I understand you work at BC Ferries.
It's true, I do. I live on the island and work out of the Lower Mainland.
Okay, so tell me what you experience and what you hear from people.
Well, on a daily basis, almost, I hear from travelers who are coming to and fro. I hear their frustrations, and it's difficult at times to be on the front lines.
I'm sure.
Because we often do share their frustrations in terms of how we're funded. I did hear an earlier caller refer to the fact that the funding model has changed in years. I have been riding the ferry since I was a child, so nearly 50 years. Things have changed over the years, but unfortunately, I think for the worse. Our funding is not commensurate with what other industries here receive. I mean, I think we have a great opportunity here in Canada now as we have this growing sentiment that we need to buy Canadian. We need to start building our ships here. We need to start funding this as an essential part of our coast communities and how we're linked. I don't wish this to be a call that is only criticizing the corporation, as it were, as I am an employee, but I do understand and empathize with those who use this day in and day out. As I said, I live on the island and I work in the Lower Mainland. I rely on these vessels on a daily basis. And quite frankly, what we do is miraculous with what we have. You just heard the engineer or the head of engineering, I've forgotten his name, mention how close we are to achieving near perfection of 100% of sailings.
Last summer.
But yet, unfortunately, it is sea travel, and people forget that there are numerous different potential problems that one will come across. Stalled vehicles are one. People who complain to you about the vessels themselves being late are often the ones that you're having to herd off of the vessel at the end, and they don't understand why it is that you're doing so. You're delaying the process. There just seems to be a bit of a disconnect.
Let me ask you, Michael, and I'm sorry that you do kind of bear the brunt of customers' frustrations sometimes, and that should not be the case as someone on the front lines. We have heard that there are, the BC Ferries sought 5 new vessels. They're going to get 4, according to the commissioner. What do you think of that when it comes to beefing up the fleet?
Well, quite frankly, it's welcome news. And to the best of my knowledge, some of those are being built here. So that is something that is pleasing. But it is just a Band-Aid for now. It is the beginning of what we need to do moving forward. I have kids that I would like to encourage to get into this industry. But, quite frankly, I need to see more for me to encourage them to do so. Because, quite frankly, when you have captains who cannot afford to buy homes where their point of assembly is, I think that there's a disconnect. If that is indeed the case, I can't encourage my children to follow this path. There needs to be a restructuring whereby those who provide this service on the front lines are receiving a living wage where we live.
Michael, it's been really good to hear from you. Thank you so much for giving us a call. That's Michael in Parksville. Great to hear from all of our callers. You can email us your thoughts to bctoday@cbc.ca. An email from Mina Lee. What makes ferries late is too many people choosing to drive. Imagine if all of us foot passengers, hundreds of us, each trip chose to drive. We need great public transit and carpooling too. And Mina says she lives on Salt Spring Island and always a foot passenger, but only 1.7% of us here live that lifestyle. Okay, Mina, thank you very much for your email. And we have another one as well from Joanne, who writes, David Eby needs to work on the BC Ferry file with the federal government. The new ship builds need to be part of the federal government's economy building, removal of provincial barriers to perhaps build new vessels in Quebec. The ferry system needs to go back to the provincial government. The privatization is a dismal failure and led to the problems we are seeing all year round. It leads to inadequate ship builds that can't be sailed in any stormy weather, spending money on pomp and circumstance instead of pouring money into efficiency, reliability, and keeping costs down. Thank you very much for your email. And Tony writes as well, we choose to live on an island. I grew up in Nanaimo, left for 15 years to develop my trade. And when I saved enough to buy a house and start a family, I chose to move back to an island. And for those who live on a smaller island, I wonder what they expect. We made this choice. We know the hardships, and it's quite apparent we don't have the population base of Asian or European regions. BC Ferries are doing the best they can with what they have. Tony, thanks as well for your email. Great to hear from all of you. bctoday@cbc.ca, again, is our email address. .12:30 now. You're with BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks very much for being with us this afternoon. Coming up in our next half hour, we are going to talk about something that is on a lot of people's minds these days, and that is cutting your shopping costs. So we're asking you, how do you do that? Have you turned to thrift shopping or repair cafes? We'll hear about those, and you can let us know too how you're getting creative in terms of saving money on those daily needs. We'll have that conversation coming up after the CBC News Update with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Canada's new housing minister says he didn't have the tools he needed to address housing affordability issues when he was mayor of Vancouver. Gregor Robertson faced questions about his record as mayor over a 10-year period. Robertson says he thinks the Liberals' Housing Accelerator Fund, which provides money for cities that lower barriers to home construction, is one program that will help to address affordability concerns. A 15-year-old girl is in hospital after a shooting overnight in Prince George. The girl's injuries are serious but not considered life-threatening. Police say the teenager was found in an RV at a homeless encampment known as Moccasin Flats. There's no word on arrests or a possible motive. And the Vancouver Canucks have hired Adam Foote as the team's new head coach. Foote was an assistant with Rick Tocchet for the last 2 seasons. He spent 19 years in the NHL as a player and established a reputation as a tough, steady defenseman. And now the forecast on the North Coast. Mainly sunny this afternoon with a high of 11. Highs around 11 with showers and a risk of thunderstorms in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 15. Highs from 15 to 18 with a chance of showers and thunderstorms in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, showers with a high of 16. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, clearing late this afternoon in some areas with highs from 14 to 17. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Rob. Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. This is BC Today here on CBC, live on Radio 1 as well. And for listeners in Metro Vancouver, here's what's coming up on the coast.
Michelle, hi there. It's Gloria Makarenko here, and I hope you can join us this afternoon for On the Coast. We are going to be following an interesting story about a Vancouver co-op, which is trying to renew its lease before the end of the month. But the process of renewing could trigger an expensive property transfer tax, which residents say shouldn't apply to a non-profit co-op. So we'll have details on that. Also, Surrey's outdoor pools are opening up, so we'll tell you about that and the free swim lessons that go along with it. And what does it mean to be Burnaby? That is the tagline of a new campaign launched by BC's third largest city. And we spoke to some Burnabarians to find out what it means to them to be Burnaby. Join us for On the Coast this afternoon between 3 and 6.
You're talking about my hometown, Burnaby. I am a Burnabarian, if that's what we're called. Proudly so. I love Burnaby. I love living in Burnaby. Gloria, thank you very much. That's coming up this afternoon on the Coast. Okay, you heard in the news update there as well, former Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson is the new housing minister. Lots of emails on this too. Catherine writes, I wonder if it would be helpful to make affordable rental buildings for seniors so they could sell the home they have to upcoming families. If I could sell my home and find a rental condo that was affordable in relation to my pension income, I would do it in a heartbeat. Gary writes from Caslow, Singapore has a solution. It's a progressive tax that increases with every additional property bought. That way, people or corporations with wealth cannot buy up the housing market. Thanks for your emails. $12:34 now. You're with BC Today. Nice to have you with us. Well, costs are rising everywhere. And yeah, shoppers are looking for deals and ways to trim the totals on those bills. We're asking you, how do you save money on your daily needs? What do you do to cut costs on things like clothes, shoes, and other household items? Do you go to thrift stores or repair your items? Do you do clothing swaps or go to Facebook Marketplace or another online secondhand website? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your phone or email bctoday@cbc.ca. Our BC Today intern Huma Javid asked people at a downtown Vancouver thrift store called Wildlife why they're drawn to thrift shopping.
What I love about thrift stores is it's a win-win-win situation for everybody. It's a win for the people who have stuff that they treasure but they can't hold on to anymore, so they can give it someplace where it'll do some good. It's a win for the people who come in and shop and couldn't necessarily have that if it wasn't here, right? And it's a win for the overall world that we're recycling everything this way. So I love thrift shops.
I'm not a fan of fast fashion, so I don't like the idea that you'll buy something that's new and then it will just go to landfill. So I love buying secondhand. Just giving like clothes a new life is what I'm all about. So.
You can find stuff that's like more unique, I think, at the thrift store. I feel like most like normal retail stores now kind of have like just plain clothes, but you can find like vintage stuff and like one-of-a-kind stuff at thrift stores. So.
The only time I go to a full retail store is when I have to buy a dress shirt that has the appropriate size collar. It's kind of hard to find as you get a little older and a little more jowly, you know. Most of my dress pants I get from here. A few collared pullover shirts I get are very nice shirts that are made out of silk, and they're very economical. You know, it's nice to find stuff like that. It's an adventure.
Yeah, I thrift quite a lot. I would come maybe once or twice a week after work. It's just the easiest way to kind of get affordable clothing. I'm always on the look for like activewear and like workwear.
I love thrift stores. I think there's so much character and old stories of things that belong to somebody else, and I feel like a lot of stuff coming out of factory stores are, they're missing uniqueness and originality, and also I feel like just for the component of the environment and resource extraction, I like to keep things, out of the landfill and keep things reused, and what somebody's junk is somebody else's treasure. So, I love thrifting. For the sake of, it's like treasure hunting.
Oh, well, I like vintage. So, I mean, and fashions change over time and fabrics change over time. And this is the kind of place where you definitely find treasures. Whatever it is that makes you think something special, you're going to find it in a thrift store more than any place else, because it was picked up in love, it was given away in love, and then you get it, and it's yours as a treasure.
Oh, that was lovely. Also, that last woman was wearing a beautiful, fabulous kind of animal print scarf. So there you go. A treasure that she found. Love to hear from you. What draws you to thrift shopping? Or what are the other ways that you save money when you're shopping for shoes, clothes, or other household items? Have you gotten creative in trying to cut your costs? We're going to speak with a thrift store and a repair cafe in just a moment. And you can call us too. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can just hit pound 690 or email bctoday@cbc.ca. I have two guests with me now. Karla Ahlqvist is president of Wildlife Thrift Store in Vancouver, and Ashleen Montgomery is finance and operations manager with the Society Promoting Environmental Conservation, or SPEC. And they hold repair cafes, including one coming up this Saturday in Vancouver. Hello to both of you.
Hi.
Hello.
Very good to have you. And Karla, I should say as well that you have a store in Vancouver, but you have another store as well. Is that right?
We do. Yeah,
Yes.
We opened one in Toronto 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me, I'd like to know a little bit about what each of you does. So, Karla, I understand. So Wildlife Thrift Store, I mean, the name kind of implies that it deals with wildlife or helps with a wildlife cause. And that was how it started, right?
That's right. So the owner that we bought the store from back 24 years ago, he did start the SPCA thrift stores. So when we bought it, that was actually his flagship at the time. We had no idea, to be honest. We were actually just looking for a business. We were newly married. We actually had no idea what was to come. But he was looking to retire. We were looking for jobs. So we thought, you know what, let's give this a shot. We'll give it a year, see if it works. I remember looking at the rent at the time thinking, how in the world will we pay the rent? When my husband and I started working at the thrift store, people would come in, refugees, welfare recipients, people on disability, people living on the street. they'd buy a cup, a bowl, a spoon, shoes. It was impossible not to want to help the people. And so that's why we thought quickly, we have to shift and support the charities that we believe in. And so that's when we started giving to Coast, Covenant House, Gathering Place, and now the food bank. Does that answer?
Yeah, it really does. Wow, to think you've been at this for so long now too. And so even though you are privately owned for profit, you do give to these and contribute to these causes that you do care about.
Yeah, that I would say that's been the most wonderful unintended consequence of this entire business. Is at the beginning, we were looking to just make a living and get by. And now it's been a lot, what with the landscape of Granville and all the violence and mental health that goes on, in the neighborhood. But we're now more passionate about the charities because that's sort of what that's what drives you every day. When you show up and you have to wake someone up to get in the door or clean up the hoarding situation someone has barricaded themselves in overnight to deal with the theft, the assaults, all the things that come with running a thrift store. I often think, is this worth it anymore? People, do I want to do this? And the answer is yes, because I love the part that we get to give back. And it's not just about everyone who came on before. They were incredible. I couldn't say it better myself. It's a win-win-win on every level. Yeah. And it gives us a chance to give back.
Wonderful. Great to hear the backstory to your store. And Ashleen, tell us about these repair cafes that Spec holds, because sort of like the thrift store, there's what it is and a bigger story around what it does for the community.
Yeah, so at Spec, we're one of Canada's oldest environmental charities, and our purpose is to empower communities to act towards a greener future. And so repair cafes is one of the ways we do that. And so what a repair cafe is it's a community event where people can bring their items to get repaired free of charge. And so how it works is we host them at different community centers in partnership with the City of Vancouver and Metro Vancouver. And people can bring in their clothing, their small appliances, computers, electronics, and even bikes. And our volunteers will assess the item. If it can be fixed, it gets repaired. And they're also willing to share their knowledge and expertise as well. And so you might be able to learn a new skill by going and helping out with a repair or learning from our expert fixers as well.
Wow. And what is it that people get? I mean, what do you hear in terms of what people get out of this attending these repair cafes?
Well, the number one reason, number one motivator for people is they want to be green. And so that's what we hear from people is they want to act more sustainably, they want to reduce their waste, and they want to be part of a culture of repair and reuse instead of just throwing things away. You mentioned cost earlier. That's a big one for people because having to go and pay for a repair or having to buy a new item when the last one just broke right away, it can be quite expensive. And so making repair accessible for people and also removing cost as a barrier is huge. I also mentioned the skill piece around our volunteers are experts, and they are willing to share their skills. So people can become volunteer apprentices where they can learn the skills. And even if you don't want to volunteer in an event, you can come attend, and the fixer will gladly have you help and answer any of your questions. And so if you're wanting to learn a skill, you can really get that benefit as well.
Being able to fix a computer or work with computers, like I'm constantly stunned at how my son and his friends just kind of can tinker with them. What a skill to have, certainly. Yeah. Let's take some calls now. My guests are Ashleen Montgomery, who's with SPEC, the Society Promoting Environmental Conservation, and as well, I'm joined by Karla Ahlqvist, who's president of Wildlife Thrift Store. So we're asking you, what do you do to save money on clothes or shoes or other household items? And have you gotten creative in trying to cut your costs? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. or you can just hit pound 690 or email bctoday@cbc.ca. Eliza in Victoria called earlier. She had to run to a meeting, but she said, I love thrift shops, but I'm sensitive to scented laundry. When I buy secondhand clothes, a lot of products have scents embedded in them. Okay, that sounds like it needs a little bit of a tip. Karla, what advice would you have for dealing with that?
I recommend to everybody, since we're receiving all day and we have no idea where anything comes from, we're just receiving bags and boxes, wash it. As soon as you get it, just wash it. Hot wash, hot dryer. We don't do that. We determine whether something smells good. If something smells good, it's hung up and it's priced and it's sold. But for anyone who has concerns, not even for anyone who has concerns, just wash it.
Just
put
throw it in the
hot dryer
straight away.
Because you're buying someone's secondhand item, and it wouldn't be cost effective for us to get washing machines and drying. Nobody does that.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. Eliza, thanks so much. Let's go to the phones now. Joe in Prince George. Hello there.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm a courier and I carry lots of boxes of stuff. So the box my pants get wore out. I put on boxes on them until I can't use it no more.
You wear the pants till you can't use them anymore.
I wear them until I can't use them no more.
Nice.
I go to thrift shops, marketplaces. The only thing I ever have to buy new is shoes because mine are steel-toed. So to buy steel-toed shoes, it's really hard.
Right.
I don't typically buy anything new.
Wow. And so, except for shoes. And do you mend things as well?
Mostly just iron-on patches.
Right. Yeah.
If I get a hole in my pants or get a hole in my shirt, I'll iron, I'll put a patch on it.
And so it sounds like, I mean, you're kind of a poster child for using your clothes. I mean, and you get a lot of wear out of your clothes, right? As a courier. So you're kind of a poster child for, hey, this actually works. Like, this is something you can do.
Yeah, this is something you can do. Actually, right through my whole life, Mom and Dad did mostly thrift shops, Salvation Army, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Even as a kid, we didn't buy brand new clothes all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Joe, thank you very much. You know what? I'm the same. I came here from the Philippines. I was 12 years old and we didn't buy anything new. Everything we had in our one-bedroom apartment was secondhand from a garage sale, and all our clothes were hand-me-down. So I know that absolutely. And I'm a big thrift shopper now as well. Joe, thanks so much. Yeah, the poster child there. If you can keep using them as a courier, that's something that's going to last. Why don't I go back to Karla here then? What's your advice for finding things that will last? We heard earlier from someone saying, I don't like fast fashion, right? They kind of tear down or wear down after one wash. So what's your advice for finding those things that will be with you for a long time?
Gosh, I mean, that's what thrifting's all about, is the hunt, the searching. It really, I think, is entertainment for a lot of people. I mean, I can't lie. So many of our garments are all the big brands that you see, from the Gap to H&M to Zara. But then you get the donations that come in from, someone who's moving countries, and you wouldn't believe the incredible donations they give. So in other words, we get all labels, and what's really fun is the labels where you go, wow, this was discontinued decades ago and I'm seeing it now. So that's so fun. It's really the thrill of the hunt. We don't know what we're getting. That's a funny thing. So it's all what is donated. We're putting up racks as fast as we can each day, probably 5, 6, 7 racks if we can. If we have 2 people pulling racks, it all just boils down to who saw it first, because you're going to see incredible labels, and we don't even have the time to, we try and make everything sort of under $20, unless it's a luxury brand. If we get something that's $1,000 Prada bag, the more we make, the more we can give. Yeah. So we're not going to give it away. We're going to ask market value, but those things are few and far between. We get mostly just everything.
Is there something? No, pardon me. I'm sorry to jump in. What's been your best find for yourself?
Oh gosh, sorry, it's the other side. I'm gonna say.
Oh.
I mean, we get art and housewares, but this I love so much. I specifically wanted to get it in today.
It's a painting on your wall.
It's not a painting. Someone tore the front page off of the New York Times, July 7th, 1940, and they framed it and they dropped it off. So I don't know where this came from, but this is what I love about a thrift store. You can't find that now.
It's actually a photo at a beach. And so there's a woman and a man, and they're kind of standing and sitting around a whole bunch of beach balls.
Yeah, it's the front page of the New York Times.
That's amazing.
But that someone else went through the trouble of mounting it and framing it and dropping it off. And when I see things like this, I mean, that's gold.
That is super cool.
I would say that's actually priceless.
Yeah, that is so cool. I'm so glad you showed it to me, and the colors too. And to think that, that's a piece of history that you have right there for sure.
Yeah, it's just fun. So, I mean, antique sewing machines. I mean, everything. We get it all, I don't even know what to say. Anything you can think of, we received it. And I mean anything, things I probably couldn't even say on air.
Well, yeah, let's leave it at that. And so what about you, Ashleen? What Joe was talking about was he sews patches onto his pants to extend their life. What are some things that we can do to extend the life of the clothing items that we have?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is attend one of our repair cafes if you can. And
why did I know that was coming? Yeah.
And if you're not in Vancouver, your community might have them as well. So it's not just us that are running these events. So I think going to a repair cafe to see what they're all about. And then the second thing I would say is you can volunteer at an event as well at one of the repair cafes, because you don't even have to be proficient in repairing. You can learn via our events. And so we really encourage, we always are looking for more volunteers. And that's a great way, because it's a barrier, if you're trying to learn how to sew and you don't know how to thread the sewing machine, there are expert menders there who will teach you that skill. And so you can become an apprentice volunteer and you can learn the skills. For me, that was a huge barrier. I wanted to repair more things, but I didn't know how. When I attended my first repair cafe, I was so inspired to learn how to sew myself. And slowly but surely I'm learning. And it's because of the experts there who were able to show me and that it's actually doable, and even if I didn't already have the skill.
What are some things you've been able to repair?
Oh, there's so many items. Clothing is definitely a popular one. Bikes are being fixed all the time or tuned up. People will bring in an issue that they were having with their computer.
And pardon me, for yourself, what are things that you've been able to fix in your life?
Oh, slowly but surely, I'm working on clothing. That's my main focus. Because I'm trying to wear my clothes until they're no longer wearable, and so I'm patching, and so that's the one that it requires a bit of patience, but I'm learning slowly but surely. So that the clothing for me is the big one.
Oh, good to know that others are still learning, like myself as well. Simone and Nelson, hello. You own a thrift store there.
Yep, me, my daughter, and son-in-law. We're now 3 generations working in the thrift store. My grandson is working at the store.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what tips do you have to share then?
People need to remember that more than 8 pairs of hands have touched something before you get to pick it up on a hanger. Quote unquote, we do receive our items for free. However, they don't go out onto the shelf for free. A tremendous amount of labor goes into putting any item out on the shelf or on a hanger.
Right.
And people need to recognize that your truly broken down appliance is not something that someone else is going to want, especially when we do have a recycling depot in our community that you could have taken that to.
It's not just a place to drop off junk.
Oh, yeah. Or something that's been sitting in your garage for 4 years, or in the back of your truck getting rained on for a week.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you that we love our community. We are grateful to be able to serve our community. We have a We never say no to clothing because we have a recycling mandate in our business. We've kept 35,000 pounds of textiles per month out of our landfills for the past 14 years. So bring it on. We'll do our best. And we're happy to serve our community, and we're grateful for the community support and service.
Simone, thank you very much. Bring it on. Yes, but with some good caveats there. Ray in Vancouver writes, called us to say clothes last a lot longer by hand washing them. That's true. There are some things I only hand wash and has clothes that have lasted 40 plus years. Thank you very much, Ray. And Layla writes, I've been thrifting for decades. It started for environmental reasons. I've clothes that I've been wearing for 2 decades as they are good quality. I also love repair shops. Best idea yet. I wish more folks would learn to repair, even sewing clothes instead of throwing them out if they just have a small seam undone or a small stain that could be covered with a design. Regarding scents in clothing, some of the perfumes are so strong nothing will take them out, so I just re-gift them to a thrift shop. Washing sometimes does nothing for scents other than sweat. Okay, so re-gifting them if you're sensitive. Thank you very much for that email. And I have 1 minute left here, but why don't I go to Kiara? One last piece of advice. It's a treasure hunt. How can you make it easier?
For the shopper?
Yes.
Go in with time. I mean, you need time because everything is individual and unique. So, boy, how to make it easier for the shopper. That's a good one. Go to the best thrift store in the best location because they're going to have the best donations. So I would start there. Obviously, look at the neighborhood of the store you're going to. So there's that. But yeah, just time. You know,
have time.
I don't know what else to say because you need to look at everything.
That's a good one. Make it efficient.
Might be buried.
Yeah,
it might pick things up and put them down, and like this was behind 5 things in the back corner.
Have the time. I do have to jump in. Thank you so much to both of you. Really fun to have you both, and good lessons here for everybody. Thanks for your time.